Coach Laurie, aka Seville, and today is episode 92. 192, guys. Guess what? We got some great topics we're going to talk about. Sunday, I think it was Sunday or Monday, was the MLB draft. We're going to talk about what does it take to get drafted. Second thing we're going to talk about today is what if you have the numbers and you don't get drafted? What is the next option to take? Another thing we're going to talk about is what do you think about the MLB? Is it going to get more analytical, or do you think it's going to be like the old school and just play baseball? I have a very own former agent. His name is Phil Van Horn. He is a partner with Integrity Sports Agency, LLC. He has been a partner with them. He's also a Christian baseball firm in Pasadena, California. He's a former college baseball coach at the University of Southern Cal and Cal State University Northridge. He also coaches a U.S. club team abroad, including tournaments in China and Australia. Wow. He is also a Emmy Award winner journalist. He credits that to the ESPN Baseball Tonight, CNN, Turner Sports. This guy's been everywhere. And he also is a former CEO of a World Baseball Network. Let's bring on the very own Phil Van Horn. How you doing, Phil?
Thank you for the invitation, Seville. I'm so grateful to be here, and congratulations to you on not only starting this but growing this. Congratulations, well done, brother.
Thank you, man. It's you started with me in the beginning. I'm at 92, 93, 94. I'm moving along, but I believe that people need knowledge. They need the right knowledge. They also need to be impacted. Um, and I said that because a lot of times people want to feel good, but I want to make sure that I plant a seed of love and also wisdom, and they can apply it. But thank you very, very much. So I know you've had quite a bit of a resume. You've done it all. You've coached, you've played, and you're an agent. And I'm going to say, most importantly, he's a man of God, not afraid to talk about the gospel. We'll get onto that as well.
Yeah,
But Phil, thank you again. I want to get right to it.
yeah.
The draft just took place. Now I took some notes, and I want to make sure I want you to hear this. Now I'm a student, and you educated me too, because I followed your footsteps, and I know there was a total of 15 shortstops drafted. 15, 1-5, 15. 15 shortstop. I don't think that's ever happened before. Has that ever happened before in history?
And,
15?
and no, and not in succession. But there was a time where, like the Toronto Blue Jays, mostly drafted a shortstop in the first or second round every year, just because they were athletic, even though they didn't end up playing shortstop. So there is some history to it, but what just happened is a reflection of where things stand right now.
Oh, really? 15 shortstops. So you would be safe to say, as a former agent and a coach and a player, you would be safe to say that they may not be a shortstop sooner or later. They may be changing their position. Would that be safe to say?
Absolutely.
I like that. He said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that because I'm sitting here looking at my note card. Number fourth pick. Number fourth pick. We're going to talk about him for a quick minute.
Yeah.
Ethan Holiday. He's an athlete. Just call it what it is. He's an athlete. And 90% of the shortstops are athletes.
Yeah.
And I said that because, his dad got drafted by the Rockies. He gets drafted by the Rockies. Is that like divine intervention, would you think? In the first round. I thought he was going I mean, Phil, I thought he's going to go two. I thought he was going to go two. I really thought he was going to go two to go to my team that I want him to go to. My two California teams, the Angels and the Giants, and the Angels didn't pick him. But he went to the Rockies. So what's your intake on that? Because the Rockies need everything. They need a kitchen sink. They need the floor. They need doors. They need everything.
Yeah, the Rockies were blessed to get him in the fourth spot. I suspect that's a negotiation. I've had other conversations like that. Usually, the first half dozen picks are a negotiation well in advance of the draft and on the draft day and after the draft. So I'm going to guess there's business element to that.
It's funny you said that because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, This is not coincidence. This is strategic.
Yeah.
Things are strategic. They do things strategic, and also it's a business. With that, I'm talking about the very first draft pick. Now, the very first draft pick was Eli Willits from Fort Cobb High School. The Nationals picked them. They need everything too, but not as bad as the Rockies. No disrespect to the Rockies, but it is what it is. So with that, he looks pretty solid. First round draft pick. You know, what is your intake from being an agent and a coach? Do most first round draft picks ever make it to the show?
I think we're looking at about 50%. So I have two backgrounds, traditional and informational or evolving information. I was a college coach. I was around scouts all the time. I have that traditional background, but I also worked in AI analysis and analytics of pro baseball. So I have a little bit of both of those elements in the way I look at things. Willits is very young, 17, and we've learned over and over again. And the lesson of Mike Trout and Giancarlo Stanton long ago is those guys were really young.
Mm,
How in the world did they get overlooked? And the answer was they were really young when they were drafted. Uh, Willits is the youngest one. So there's some
wow.
merit in looking at him, and there are analytical models that will give a weighted value to younger 17-year-olds on draft day, and they should
Hmm.
if they're as physical as he is and as mature as he is in the game. And he is all of that.
Well, there was another guy that you didn't bring up as well that was 17 as well. If I'm not mistaken, correct me. And his name is the very own Ken Griffey Jr. Ken Griffey was
Wow.
very young as well, and we're talking about, I mean, maybe 30 years ago. No disrespect. I mean,
Yeah.
I love Griffey, but I'm making a point because he didn't stay in the minors very long.
No, but you're bringing up, and these are conversations. These are not arguments, although it gets to that. Bobby Witt Jr. was the opposite. He was a 19-year-old high school senior, and he moved quickly to the big leagues. So you have to balance both. You have to look at, okay, here's a 19-year-old high school senior. How quickly
19.
will he get through the minors?
Mm,
And the answer is, Bobby Witt Jr., great speed, physically mature and baseball mature, great baseball sense. It didn't take him long.
mm,
And, credit to the Royals for jumping in, all in on him. And look at what kind of player he is now. So there are a couple ways to look at the
okay.
age makes a difference, and then
Okay.
also negotiating. I think the Rockies just whatever the number was that his agent, Holiday's agent, put up, the Rockies just couldn't pass on that and where they stand right now. But also taking Willits is not a bad thing where we stand right now, really.
Mm. I mean, 17 years old, it's a lot of developmental. I don't think he'll probably be there very long if he develops the way they expect him to develop,
Yeah.
because it's all about expectation. But then you look at the second draft pick, Tyler Bremen from U.S. Santa Barbara, the pitcher. So he's probably, I'm guessing 22, 23, because he's probably a junior, at least a junior, maybe a senior, but 22, 23. So that's a different dynamic versus 17
It
versus
is.
22, 23. And I know the Angels need pitching as well. How can you, what do you say about that pick?
Well, each one is a specific case, right? Okay, like Willits is young, but he's the son of a former big leaguer. Holiday's son of a former big leaguer. And Willits' dad coached. I think he coached in the Yankee system. He was a big league coach and a college coach, I think, at Oklahoma. And the Holiday family, all baseball, and of course, an uncle's the
Right.
head coach at Oklahoma State. Bremner grew up, and a year ago, uh, 2 years ago, was targeted as a first 3 or 4 pick. This
Okay.
past year, he personally has gone through a great deal, losing his mom, and then I saw where his mom died, and his college coach Andrew Checketts talked about it was obviously impactful on him. Now,
Mm,
the Angels got a deal on that. They were not willing to pay what the slotted amount, the recommended. You don't have to do that.
right.
So I'm sure that and their GM has a history of grabbing someone below slot. Although Bremner has a chance within a year or two to be in a big league
Big leagues.
bullpen or in a
Right.
rotation,
Right.
but They also took an underslot deal, and again, that was pre-negotiated, most likely, although there's still a negotiation, they still have to sign. And it freed up other money for them, and their habit is in the second round to go after, or their next pick to go after a higher priced high school player. And we'll see how that plays out. So each one of those picks is a different mindset. You got to go down into what the background of that is to fully understand that.
Okay.
And the Angels say that they feel comfortable that with Tyler's with some of the challenges he had off the field
Right.
impact some of the things that happened on the field, but he's still very talented. And if you look at who he was a year ago, um, we've learned over and over again that a year does not make a college player at that level.
Yeah, and is D1 as well. He's a D1 player as well. I mean, with that, I mean, I'm gonna talk about one more thing. I'm looking at my note card. We got another guy from your area, Corona High School. Now, Corona High School won the national championship in California. They're the cream of the crop, from my understanding. It's like IMG,
Yeah,
bottom line, in Corona.
it is.
From my understanding, I did some research on him, trying to get that head coach on my show as well. I'm going to keep trying. I want him on my show because if you're winning, you're doing something right. So the guy that I'm talking about, they had two guys, if I'm not mistaken. They got a pitcher that came out. Seth Hernandez came out. Well, you're right, three guys. But I only went to the first top 10, and
Yeah.
I know two of them. One was a pitcher. The first was a pitcher, and his name was Seth Hernandez. Went by the Pirates. Well, the Pirates are pretty smart. They always pick pitchers. They just need a little more hitting. And then the second one was shortstop. That's where I want to go, to the shortstop. He got picked up by the White Sox. The White Sox need him. They need everything in the kitchen sink as well. And his name was Billy Carson. And when they did the evaluation, I want you to have your thinking hat on as an agent. They said that he had a great glove, but his hitting was. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, time out. He's high school, so he got some development. I don't know, is he 18? Do you know, is Billy Carson, is he 18 or 17? Now they said he was good, but they talked about his glove was his best thing about him. What do you think about that?
Well, I've seen some video of Billy, and I know a gentleman that he took infield class with, shortstop drills with. Uh, Incredibly talented baseball athlete, physical. And when they're talking about that the glove is ahead of the bat, they're projecting, and his glove, his footwork, his arm, his glove are really sensational for a high school senior. They're looking at, okay, who is he in high A and who is he as a big leaguer, and the glove plays. Everybody that gets drafted has to get better. If they don't, they won't last past high A. Because
Hmm.
baseball, pro baseball is so hard. Double A on up, especially the big leagues, incredibly hard. But you're looking at Billy is really well schooled, incredibly fundamentally sound. There's a lot to like about that. When they say that the bat is not equal to the glove, that really is just another way of saying he is an exceptional defensive ball player and athlete. And Corona Centennial had, gosh, think of this. They had four guys. They got a junior who'll likely be in the first round next year.
Next
So
year.
it's four first rounders on the same team. Now, what's interesting about that, I love baseball, how unpredictable it is. They lost their sectional championship to St. John Bosco. And
Okay.
I'll get you connected with Andy if you want to have. He was the
Yes.
coach of the year on the West Coast, California, and they're loaded too with D1 guys. And I'll give you Andy's phone number so you can give him a
Cool.
call. But there's a lot to understand about what's happening there. Those guys are in. I think there were three high school shortstops from Southern California that went early. Those guys have been really traveling, working. They are hard workers. They are very advanced, and they're physically mature as well.
Mm.
And I know one of the things you said we're going to talk about how do you get drafted, and physical maturity, tools, physical maturity, and we'll talk more about that. But as you said that, I wrote down the note, and those guys are physical. They don't look like high school seniors.
They're man childs. I like that. So that's,
Well, they
which
look
leads
like
me to
football players. They've been up lifting before school, after school. They're polished at this stage. They're polished, but again, the pro baseball is a tough job.
it
So
really is, and
yeah,
which leads into that next question. what does it take from an agent? You're an agent. How do you get drafted, or what does it take to get drafted? And I know there's 5 tools, but some people don't know what
Yeah.
that is. If you can kind of break it down from an agent perspective,
Yeah.
knowing what the MLB teams need, how do you, from what you're going to give us, how do they position themselves to get drafted?
Yeah. So we're going to answer the question specifically, how do you get drafted? One is mature early.
Okay, okay,
And
Phil, what do you mean? Break that down. Mature early. What do you
yeah,
mean by that?
grow, be big, run fast, throw hard way earlier than lots of other guys. And you have to do that to get attention because it's not about just getting scouted by the local area scout or even the cross checker. You got to bring the boss in. You got to
Okay,
bring in the scouting director. You got to bring in his boss
okay,
if you're going to get drafted early and make some money at the game.
okay,
So one is be really, really good and, genetically be big and good early. And when I say be big, you can be 5'8" and physical,
mm-hmm,
right? You can be 5'8", 195 and put together and all good, or
mm-hmm,
be tall and physical. So that's the first thing. Second thing, right, you get into tools. If you're a position player, run, throw, hit for power, hit for average, all of those things. Uh, you've got to grade out high. You have to grade out high. And a lot of that is potential, but you've got to physically be talented. If you're a pitcher, if you're going to get drafted early, make some money, you're going to have to, you know, throw hard, velo. You're going to
mm,
have to do that. Now, that's how you get drafted.
okay,
How you get to the big leagues, a little bit different thing because you've got to deal with failure, horrible, repeated failure. You got to be
okay,
resilient and you've got to learn and adjust and get better. And that applies to both pitchers and position players. And that is not always revealed. Even if you're a high character guy, you can get to double A and in a hurry
okay.
and then you get there, and all of a sudden, someone comes along beside you, and you're playing part time, and you just say, that's it, I've had it." And they'll say, "Well, look, we're going to give you some time at AAA, and that's all good, but you know in your mind, these guys are better than me. I'm done." But
Mm,
that's getting drafted. How do you play pro ball without getting drafted is a different thing
okay,
because the sport is hard.
right. Which kind of lead me to the next question. I have a guy. I mean, I know he doesn't mind. I coached this kid in high school. I think it's about Phil about 4 or 5 years ago. He was a senior, and I coached him. He has got better. He's got some great numbers, um, and I really want to say his name because he didn't get drafted. Now he did some great numbers. He went to a JUCO for 2 years,
Yeah,
and then he came. He went to FIU,
yeah,
Florida International University. Had some great numbers, and his numbers got better. But I was expecting he led his conference in home runs, slugging percentage. I don't know all the details. I didn't go into it, but I was looking. I thought he'll get drafted. He
yeah.
didn't get drafted. So the question is, if you have great numbers, what do you do to position yourself to get an get an opportunity to get on a team? Because I know you can be a free agent, but I mean that's that's a hard thing to do. So what do you do to position yourself if you don't get drafted?
Well, it can be done to be undrafted and get to pro baseball and even to the big leagues. It's a tough path. Play indie ball, go to Mexico, and
Okay,
it's really that sounds simple, but it's not
but
easy. Simple
okay,
but not easy.
okay,
And there was a time I had a young man who grew up near me. I was his agent. He was an accomplished D1 pitcher, and for he had velo, lefty, threw in the low 90s. He was not drafted. His strikeout to walk ratio hurt him.
okay,
He went to Mexico for 3 years
okay,
and he got picked up. I believe he's a double A now pitching. He'll likely be in a big league bullpen if he'll hang in there. Now, a couple things happen there. You
okay,
got to be willing to humble yourself and take what you get. And then when you get that, you got to be good. And so not getting drafted is not the end of the world, but it's a journey. And then you've got to be real. And
Okay.
it's funny, you got to be realistic and you got to be unrealistic. You got to
Okay.
be realistic in that when you get to indie ball or when you get to, you got to put up numbers. No matter
Mm,
what, put up numbers. And then two, no matter how many times someone tells you, boy, the chances are slim, or you're wishing or hoping or dreaming, say, good, okay, good. I got a jersey on, I got a chance.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Because people don't know. They think when they get drafted, they're going to have all this money, which I know about the signing bonus. We're not going to get into that. Because minor league baseball, I mean, I'm just going to say it's painful. It's painful. Other words, it's like going back to college at a lower level. But the baseball is a higher level, but the living is different. It's different. So, because people think when they get drafted, they got all this money. They got all this money. It's only gonna last for so long. And you got guys coming out of high school, coming out of college. They've never, ever, ever had a job. And so, how do you prepare when you are drafted or not drafted, and you're in minor league? What's the best way to preserve yourself to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, how do you survive and advance in minor league baseball? Um, on the field is preparation, be prepared, do everything you can every day. If you're a starter, take good care of your body, your mind, so that if you're a position player starter, so that you can deal with the grind of every day. And break down for guys. In college, you play 56 games, 9 innings. You're going to play 56 games in a month and a half in minor league ball. But in minor league ball, early on, they're going to be patient with you. You're not going to play every day. You'll play 2 out of every 3 days. But you're going to go out. If you're a bench player, your practice has to be your game. And
Mm,
then whenever you do get that 1 day a week or 1 game every 3 or 4 days, you got to be good.
mm,
That's how you do it. So that's the on the field. Off the field, you got to be incredibly frugal. Save, save, save. And if you don't have a history of that, or you don't have someone telling you that, and
wow.
as you talked about the money, realistically in the minor leagues, there's not a lot of money.
Right.
You don't have a lot to spend anyway. So be smart about that. And then the minor leagues today are an ice age different from what the minor leagues were even 15 to 20 years ago, where it was really the conditions then were embarrassing, and
Mm,
Major League Baseball has been outed for what it was, and
mhm,
even a couple of organizations clung to what they were and how poorly they treated guys. Peanut butter and jelly, that was it. That was their nutritional lunch and dinner. That's what you got. That's it. And you were sleeping 6 to 8 guys in a two-bedroom apartment. That is it. And when baseball got outed for that, and embarrassingly so, they began to change. And so some of the conditions of the stadiums are much better. Some of the living conditions are much better. But still, with the removal of a couple of layers of minor league baseball today, you got to put up or you're out.
mm,
And it's made, gosh, it's just made obvious to guys right away. You're drafted, you're going to go to low A, you better produce or have something that shows them something for a month or two, or else, another draft came in and they're moving those guys on,
right.
and you're either moving up or out.
Well, I
And
like
it,
that you
it
said.
doesn't take long in the sport to realize where you stand. It really doesn't.
Well, that's good. I mean, Phil, that's extremely good information. This is episode 92, very own Phil Van Horn, and I'm going to give you a quick commercial break. If you guys are trying to get to the next level or you're trying to play D1 baseball, check this out. I want you to get ready, get prepared. I got a new book coming out, and it's called Are You Really D1? Stay tuned, and the website will be listed later on. But if you want any information, go to my YouTube channel. That's YouGoinPro YouTube. That's my channel. And Are You Really D1? Book's coming out in September, so be ready, be square. Hey, I got another question for you, Phil. What do you think about the ML game today? Because I'm saying this because back when you were scouting, you the game was a little. I actually liked it better personally. I'm just using that because it wasn't so many analyticals. I like analyticals. I'm not against it. I know that's your profession. I'm not against that. but it's almost like I've had Corey Aldrich on my show. I had a couple other MLB guy, Derek May was on my show. I had quite a few guys on my show, and they all saying the same thing, but they all come from that generation I come from. I'm saying that because the game seems kind of mechanical sometimes. You like they looking on this, they know where to go. They got the little earpiece in. Do you think it's going to ever kind of shift back to that? And I'm saying that because the viewers, we need people to watch the game. Because when you watch the game, you bring money and revenue. I said that because a lot of times there's a lot of guys that are they look like robots. So what do you think about that? Only time you see regular baseball field is the playoffs. I mean, I love baseball.
Yeah.
You just see them like, okay, like 3 or 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, everybody's shifting. And I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it takes the fun away from the game.
Well, you brought up a lot of information, so let's go back to this a little bit. And playoff baseball is amazing. TV ratings prove that. So you're talking about old school and new school, or traditional information or analytic information. And my background, I was a scout for area code games.
Okay.
And then when I was a college baseball coach, I worked with scouts. And then when I was an agent, I worked with scouts. And I've mentored scouts and executives and coaches and managers, and have been totally blessed by all of that being in the culture of the game. So I have a background in both analytics as an AI consultant and someone who believed in the information. And when I was a coach, I wanted more
Right,
information that
right.
told me more about my players. I do not want to be a team or an organization or a coach that totally disregards information. I don't want to concede that advantage to the organizations that have it. All right. So let's set that up is that I have a little bit of background in both of those. And analytically, I put a number value on it. I think traditional big league information in a big league clubhouse on the playing field 10 years or more is a set of information all of its own. We'll call that traditional
Okay. Okay.
pro baseball information.
Okay.
That has enormous value.
Okay.
And the people who disregarded that were incredibly wrong. They were just wrong. It was dumb. It was bad. And but at the same time, you've got to embrace new information. If a batter comes up and I'm a shortstop and I know that
Right.
70% of the time he hits the ball to my glove side, don't I want to go ahead and move over one or two steps?
Correct. Correct.
Does that not make sense? Of
It makes
course it
very good
does.
sense.
And if I find that in the big leagues that a left-handed hitter that hits in the first 4 to 5 in the order has an 80% chance of pulling the ball to the first base side of where the second baseman normally plays, don't I want to go ahead and get over there and take that away? Now, the adjustment, you can't put the middle infielder on the, handed side of the bag. Fine, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Okay, good. And making the bases closer together that brought back speed into it, having the pitchers speed up, that was actually a really good
Yes.
idea
Yes.
because it made the game more viewable because those 3 hour, 45-minute Yankee Red Sox games were competitive,
Terrible.
high level competitive, but that was really not a very
Too
good
long.
product. So I think traditional information has a value that is on a 100%, that's 65 to 70% of what wins games and gets players better at the big league level.
Right.
But that 30 to 35% of evolving information, if we don't have that, we're giving away wins to other teams
Right.
because you hear that, there's victory in the margins, or we want to win in the margins. And that's true because the margins are thin on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis in the big leagues of how we win games. And
Mm.
little things add up. Little things add up. And
Wow.
so we want to do both of that. And so that is really hard. Clint Hurdle, a friend, has a saying is, you know, old school, new school. How about instead of, getting upset at one or the other, how about we get together and go to school together?
I like
And
that.
that's really the right approach. Because if someone says, if one organization says, "Oh, we're analytically inclined, but we only have like 15 people on our staff," and over here, the Yankees, Dodgers, they have 45 to 60 or 60 to 70 people on their staff. there's a gap there and there's an advantage to that. And I've been in meetings with lots of different people on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm favored by people that are in analytics, and also they'll say, oh, you have traditional, you're not our guy. And the opposite is true with guys who have traditional knowledge. I just think, again, if you've been in a big league clubhouse 10 years or more, meaning as a player or a coach, that is a subset of information about how to win games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are managers today that show up and the front office hands them the lineup card for that day. That is not a total bad idea, except for, and they intend for the manager to own the clubhouse and to be a PR guy. And I don't mean that in a negative way, although sometimes that connotation is a negative thing. They've always got to spin things, they've got to be in front of the media. But uh, from being in the clubhouse, you get to know the guys. But you also got to realize, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, people would say you only need one hitting coach in the big leagues.
Right.
And then there were two, and people would scoff, oh, now that some clubs have three, and frankly, they need it because several guys need different things.
Right.
And clearly, guys that are not everyday starters in the big leagues, position players, their needs to stay sharp as a hitter are different from that guy that's hitting in the top of the order and playing every day.
Correct.
And it's good to have someone who is in their head about what they need that day. And then today we turn over players pretty regularly, shuttle from double A, triple A, triple A to the big leagues. And when a guy comes up, there's got to be a guy who's focused on that guy so that
Mm-hmm.
he helps you win that day. And that's not as easy as it sounds for one hitting coach and one manager
That's a
to
lot.
know everything about those guys and what their needs are, what their habits are, and what makes them able to contribute on a regular basis. And it's the same thing. It wasn't that long ago that one pitching coach was it. And then it was one guy handled the starters, one guy handled the bullpen. And I can remember criticism of that. And you can go back to when the Kansas City Royals had that 2-year run, and they kind of pioneered where they just told one of the guys, you handled the bullpen. Well, their bullpen was dominant in the playoffs in that 2-year run, and that changed a lot of people's mind. It was like, oh, wait a minute. So that guy was, he was drilled in with everybody who came. He knew all of their habits
Mm-hmm.
mentally, personally, what they needed in their bullpens, what they needed on their off days, all of that stuff. And that's where we've gotten into, you got to win in the margins. You got to know that very tiny information that adds up.
Mm.
And when I watch big league games, that's what I'm looking for today. I have a great appreciation for the Dodgers. I live in LA. I'm not a fan, although my wife and I used to be season ticket holders 20 years ago or so. I am an observer and an appreciation of some of the excellence that they pursue
Right.
and their commitment to that. And
Right.
I can remember talking to people when they signed Shohei, and someone said, in analytics, what are you seeing here? And I said, well, he will be, here's the first thing about it, he will be a better hitter with the Dodgers. They will make him a better hitter because I knew some of the things they worked on, and I knew a person who worked with him in the batting cage. I said, he's going to be as good as he is, he will be a much better hitter. And that has been the case. And as a professional, much respect for that.
That's really very, very good information. That's a lot, but hey, I like it. Which leads me to, I got a couple more questions before we close out. My next question is this, which everyone is listening, we're talking about pro baseball, MLB, what it takes to get drafted. We talk about the numbers, the analyticals. We talked about what's your step to get in to get drafted or get on a team, MLB team. But now we're going to make another shift. There's two questions left. My next question is this, and it's going to be short, is what does it take to go D1, to be a D1 baseball player? Now, I said that because I got another question after that, so you can give me the short version, and I got one more out. So what does it take to be a D1 baseball player for someone coming out of high school? Because at the end of the day, every kid thinks they're D1, and it's no disrespect, but what's your intake from your analyticals, from your coaching, from your agent, everything? Give us the 2-minute version of that.
Okay. Two things. The first two paths. The first path is like getting drafted early. Be physical early, mature early, be really good, get attention as an eighth grader, freshman, sophomore in high school, be big and be good. The second thing is because of NIL and the portal, be willing to navigate. Be
Mm,
willing to go to junior college for 2 years, go to a D2, D3 NAIA for a year, then redshirt, then jump to another, then jump to another. So there are a wide variety of paths to D1 today because of the portal, and I'm amazed at how that has evolved. Wow,
mm.
what a crazy thing that is! And I still have friends that I help navigate that and pray, because man,
Amen.
has that become just an absolute mayhem of trying to figure out. So that's one thing about how to become a D1 guy. One, be the dude. Two, be the guy that's willing to navigate.
Okay. Short version. One last question, then we're going to close it out. We got like 5 minutes left. My question is this: we in baseball today, there's basketball, there's a National Basketball Association, there's National Football League as well, and you see more diversity in those sports. My question to you is, since you've been around the game so long, what is it going to take to get more Americans? Let's just use that word, Americans of all nationalities, to play more baseball? Because if we look at baseball now, it's not like it was back in the day. The percentages of Caucasians are not playing baseball as much. The percentage of blacks are not playing as much. And so my question to you, what do you think it's going to take to get more Americans to play baseball? They can't play in MLB if they don't play baseball. So you got to start somewhere. So what do you think it's going to take?
Yeah, it's a good question. In the NBA, there are more European and global players. It's because they're better.
Yeah.
They are. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're better. They're in. Let's go get a 7-footer from Europe or from. I read, in the most recent draft, or I think one of the top prospects for the next draft. He's from Mexico. He's not playing college ball. He went to Australia to play 1 year. Now he's a draft prospect for the NBA.
Mm,
You got to be willing to do that. Uh, the game, all of those games are global now. They are all global. But let's answer the question: how do we get more black young men, talented young men, into MLB? And the answer is they got to make money. They got to make money right out of high school, because and who knows what tomorrow brings with college sports. But
correct.
clearly, college football dominates budgets. It does. It just
Yes.
does.
Right.
And it's not changing. In fact, it's being all the more defined with revenue sharing.
Correct.
So if you're a talented young athlete in any major city in the United States, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, it doesn't matter where it is, and you have options coming out of high school, what's going to be? And it's like, let's not overthink this. Where's the money? And it's not that baseball hasn't paid first rounders or talented young black men that are in the first round. They get paid. But it's tough to get to the big money, because then you got to go through a 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 year process, minor league baseball, to get to, big league rookie minimum. And then to get to, gosh, where you get to your 5th year to where you can get to arbitration, then you get into generational wealth. That's a long path from, hey, if I go in the college basketball, there are guys making $1 and $2 million a year in college basketball. Now, in college baseball is beginning to pay some of that, and there are the SEC and other teams that are similar that are paying players $1 and $2 million. And I mean, when I first heard that, I was like, holy smokes! But that has become more common, and you can just look at it. It is not difficult to figure out which teams are paying that.
Correct.
So you follow the money, because that's what athletes and families are doing. And by saying that, I don't mean poor white and black families or Latino families. It's just that's where the money is. That's where people are going.
Well, hey, that's good. We got a very own Phil Van Horn, an agent, a coach, an AI guy. He does it all. He's given us over 30 minutes of great information. This is episode 92. Phil, if you can just close it out, because of time, I want to respect your time. If you can give some words of encouraging, for the listeners, and anything that you can say, it'd be great.
Well, it's the journey, right? It's the journey. You have an athlete, male, female, in your area, in my area, that starts out and shows some kind of promise, 8 through 12. Good. Mom and dad, it's the drive to and from where you're taking them that has the great value. And then as they get into their body changing years, 14, 15, 16, and whether their body changes or not. And I have a son who played up to AAA in pro baseball, and he was the or not. He was a little guy. When everybody got big, he was a little guy. So he did junior college and in this place and that place, but he got to AAA because he eventually did grow and mature. It's the journey. That's
Okay.
what we take away from that. It's the journey. Enjoy it. It will tax you. Be family in the middle of that. Mom and dad, step back.
Mm.
Be committed, of course, support, but step back. It's his or her journey. And because it does, and you hear this, and people hear it and they think, oh, yeah, it comes and goes very quickly in life. It comes and goes very quickly. Share memories, share journey together, but mom and dad take a step back because this thing comes and goes quickly. And embrace the journey and pray. If you're a praying family, pray.
Good, very good. I really appreciate your closing. I also want to say thank you for coming again. This is the second time we got you
Yeah.
here. I appreciate it. Episode 92. We had very own Phil Van Horn. It's given some great, great information. You might want to download this, listen to it over and over and over. We got all this great information about the MLB, how to get noticed, how to become a D1 player, get more Americans to play baseball, and much, much more. The question I want to ask you as I close this out is, where are you being led? He talked about that. Basically, where's your destiny? What's your purpose in life? I believe that God's given everybody a purpose. Now, the question is, are you listening? Because faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. The first letter is L. What do you mean by that, coach? L stands for listen. Listen to everything that Phil Van Horn has given us today. And God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So close that, use that. The next letter is E. E stands for what? Execute on what you just listened to. Execute. That means faith without works is dead. It does not move unless you move it. Next letter is D. D stands for what, coach? D stands for dominate. I personally believe that God created his human beings on earth to dominate. In other words, when you get in your lane and you get what God's called you to do, you should dominate. Now, dominate is different for everyone. You can be the best person in your on your lane. That doesn't mean you have to be the best in everything, but you are the best because God doesn't make losers. This is Coach Laurie very on episode 92. Phil Van Horn. It has been nothing but a great pleasure to have you on the show. God bless you and thank you. And you will send me over those names so I can go ahead and get these other coaches on this show. It has been a blast, and I love you, brother. Thank you. God bless. Bye bye.
Love you, brother. Thanks